Speaking of this sort of dynamic and tough situations, the whole concept of monogamy versus polygamy, where does the truth lie? What is the right way? Are we meant to be with one person, or are we forcing ourselves against the nature laws? What's the right way?
It's a big, wide question. I don't think there's a right answer. It's not black and white, you know. It might be that recently I've been in conversations with a lot of people that subscribe to the poly lifestyle. And it's interesting because it has become more mainstream over the years. Certain public figures have come out about their sort of, like, we see David Hay in the paper the other day with like his 2 girlfriends in Morocco or wherever he was. Like, it creates more conversation, it creates more curiosity to exploring that relationship model. It comes with a lot of challenges. What I will say about the sort of polyamorous setup is there's a lot to be learnt from it, even if you're in a monogamous relationship.
How so?
Communication. It cannot work without high-level communication. If you have a primary partner and several lovers or whatever, or you're both sort of actively dating, and in order for that to work, you have to be able to communicate on a high level. You have to communicate boundaries. You have a relationship with jealousy that you got to deal with. Like, there's a lot to learn. I would actually go to say, like, there's a great book that I recommend all my clients to read, not because I'd say that that's a relationship model that you should follow, but it's a book called Sex at Dawn. And, you know, some people might say it's polyamorous propaganda, but just read it to understand the communication and how important it is, and you'll learn a lot about yourself in any relationship, you know?
I was going to ask you about communication as well. I mean, men and women definitely have very different communication styles. How can we bridge and ensure that that communication is successful and we get our points across in an efficient...
Be brave, because like a lot of the things that we're too scared to communicate end up being the reasons why we're actually going to have that argument, or worse, break up, you know. And it's not even like, it might be just like a petty thing around a house that you don't like, you know, or it might be someone's not pulling their weight in your relationship, like helping out. It might be a desire, you know, it might be you want to see them plan more. It might be you want for them to communicate love in a certain way, how you like to receive it, and they're not quite understanding it, you know. It might be how you're making love. You know, I've had it where the men and women I've worked with, they've been unsure how to correct their lover or their partner's technique because they don't want to offend them. There are ways of doing that, and we go through it, but like the consequences, if you don't communicate how that's done right, then
probably a breakup.
Yeah, you're going to find it elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So just be brave. The real risk of, as I said earlier, of not communicating is...
I think this is where that irrational fear once again comes in of, okay, if I say this, I'm going to hurt that person. If I say this, they might leave me. But as you said in the beginning of the conversation, that's precisely what you need to be doing. How do you find that courage though?
By thinking of the consequence.
Of not doing it.
Consequence of not doing is an encouragement to do. Like, if you think about in a work context, if you assume your colleague, like, for example, okay, we mentioned about earlier on off camera, you mentioned about the editing procedure of this podcast. If you just assumed your editor knew how to edit it, it would come back on your desk, you'd be pissed, right? So there's a level of communication that's involved to get it right and how you want to put it out there. So we understand those rules in the professional setup. We just got to take those rules and apply them in our personal setup.
Yeah, there's this whole massive tippy-toeing around feelings. I think we don't even know how to deal with our own emotions, let alone with other people's emotions. So that's why we're so like deer in the headlights.
Yeah, I mean, we care and we love that person, but simply put, like, even if you just buffer it, like, look, you know, I love you and care for you. Like, I just wanted to communicate this to you, and I hope you don't take it the wrong way. Do you know what I mean? Like, if your partner is mature enough to understand, like, oh, okay, they're actually taking a moment to actually, for me to pick up on something. And I guess as well, we got to not be so harsh on our partners. Like, when we communicate something to them and they don't get it right once or twice, just, okay, look, they're learning. All right? Just give them some time.
Yeah. Speak.